Hi everyone, and welcome to this session of Google Ads Best Practice course. This is a massive topic to cover in 1 hour, but we've got a seasoned digital marketer on board who's going to take you through setting up Google Ads and best practices. Peter is an SBMS mentor. He's been working over at the QVM with us for a couple of years now and is currently working with a number of clients externally in digital marketing as well. Peter, I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Madeline. So first of all, just thank you for the opportunity to do the presentation. And as Madeline said, it's around about 40 hours to basically go to bring someone up to speed on Google. And we're going to do this in really 2 1-hour sessions. So there is a lot of slides. Don't worry about that. We'll get through them quite quickly. And then what we're going to try and do is to try and actually set up an account for a current customer of mine who has been kind enough to let me use the facility to do that. Now, normally you do this standing up, and normally you do it with a big screen. So doing it from a small screen today is going to be a little bit challenging. So you might see me flicking between tabs and screens, but bear with me. And I also have an additional level of challenge, which is I thought I might break my arm yesterday to just to make my keyboard skills really, really good. So if I do cut myself off, I'll be back within a minute, as it just means I've touched the keyboard with the cast in some unpredictable place. So we'll get through it. And like I said, don't worry about there being a lot of screens. There's a huge amount of screens in Google, but it is relatively easy. And I do ask you just to trust me when I say follow the bouncing ball, because it's patience and persistence and tenacity are really the only skills that you need. So I'm going to start the presentation. And if I need to go backwards and forwards, you'll see the screen flick in and out a little bit. And thank you very much, Madeline. And we'll have a Q&A at the end. Yes. And I've asked Madeline to intercede if she thinks I'm going too quickly or there's something important that I've missed. So the end of today's session, what we want to do is have you to be able to set up a Google account. Now, I do notice from some of the people logging on, they've already got a Google account. So you might find some of this a bit sort of stuff that you've already known, but in the next session, we're going to look at how to add a bit more value to your Google account. So hopefully within about an hour, you'll be ready to log in and set up your Google account. So I'm going to start, if that's all right, Madeline.
Yes, please go ahead.
Right. So today we're talking about Google Ads and we're talking about best practice. And Google Ads is sometimes called paid search or PPC. Don't get confused, it's all the same stuff. So Google Ads is a form of paid search or pay per click. And you can do pay per click advertising in Facebook, Instagram, Quora, Pinterest, whatever. But Google Ads is paid search or pay per click. So just use the terms interchangeably like everyone else. Now, in terms of myself, just to so you know what I know about PPC, my biggest budget a number of years ago was worldwide cruise centers and cruise centers. And that budget was about $370,000 a year, which means that they're spending, roughly about $1,000 a day on advertising. And that was obviously a substantial challenge. And my smallest budget is my current budget, which is a $20 budget, and that is $20 for several days, and that's for a small organization called Agent Travel Data, and that's on LinkedIn. Now, when Madeline asked me if I wanted to do the course, I didn't think about it because I probably would have said no. When I said yes, I rushed off and did a couple of qualifications just to bring my skills up to speed in July. And I did 2 really good courses on LinkedIn Learning, which are also available on Lydia, and that was Google Essential Ads Training and Advanced Google Ads. Now, they only take a couple of hours each. If you do the coursework and you do all the exercises, they take a lot longer. But I would encourage you, if you've got access to LinkedIn Learning or Lydia, to go and do a course. It was very good. The other one is Google Garage, but that takes about 35 hours. So I feel like I'm in a position to talk with a little bit of confidence about what we need to do today, because I've done some recent qualifications. So what I'm going to cover in a sort of speed session today is really setting up an account. But I'm going to talk about planning. When you do this, it's all about planning. Who are you going to plan to go after? What do you want them to do? What do you want to say? Which keywords do you want to use? And hopefully, like I said, we're going to set up a campaign. and a campaign is going to have an ad group, and then we're going to write a little ad. And then I'm going to talk about reviewing your performance in Google Shopping, which is really some of the stuff I'll cover in the next session, which will be in about 10 days, I believe. So when we talk about Google ads, they're really only part of the Google solution. So Google ads are part of digital marketing, and they help you get noticed on a page, and they help you get noticed in the right context. They're usually at the top of the page, and you can usually see them. I've circled like a sample page because they say ad in tiny little words. They're next to them, and they're at the bottom and the top. A lot of the public don't realize that they're ads because they look like normal results. So it's a very good way for a small business to get at the top of the page. Where they live with is with Google My Business, Analytics, and Tag Manager. So they're all other Google products that you should be using if you're going to use Google Ads. And they do very well if the engineering on your site is good, okay? So if you're going to spend time and money, look at some of the other things that you can do before you do Google Ads, such as My Business, Analytics, Tag Manager, and a bit of SEO. They don't make up for having a really terrible site. So they'll get you traffic, but they won't necessarily get you business if your site's no good. So step one is you need a Gmail account. If you don't have one, you can't really go any further. So just sign up for a Google account and keep it really simple, something that you can remember, like candystore.qvm@gmail.com. So lots of you have had students through the RMIT program, and a lot of them would have set you up an account with a .qvm in it. Dig it out, find the password, and use that account. So the second point is just to get started. You can watch as many videos as you like, you can do as many courses as you like, but I would urge you just to get started. Okay, so the place you can get started is ads.google/home, or you can just type it into the internet, it'll take you there. So when you get there, the thing I'd urge you to write down is the 1-800 number. The 1-800 number, which is down below the Get Started button, is your get out of jail free card. If you get confused, you run out of time, you run out of patience, or you start to feel it's a bit too confusing, you can call them and they will take over the account and they will talk you through it. So you have got a fallback position, and you might not end up knowing everything you need to know about the Google account, but at least you'll have one and it will be working. So just take a little note of the number. So when you start off, it'll ask you a question. And one of those things is, it relates to what do you want to do? And it'll ask you whether you've got a Google My Business account. And if you don't, I would ask you to reconsider what you then do your Google Ads. Okay? It's if you have got a Google My Business account, it's worth giving it a little review and just making sure that everything in it is up to date, that the website link works, your phone number's correct, and all of that sort of thing. So it's the Google My Business is the best form of free location marketing you can get in the world, and it's free from Google. And lastly, Google loves all Google products. So the more Google products you're using, the more it will like you. So take advantage of that. Okay, so when you log in, they'll ask you if it's a new account or a new campaign. So if you've already got an old campaign or an old account, it may just ask you to start a new campaign. Go with it. Otherwise, it'll start you right from the fresh. So in this particular case, we're just going to say, yes, we want to start a new campaign. Okay. After that, there is an option to follow a bouncing ball. Okay. You can set up an account by choosing leads, sales, website traffic, brand awareness, ad promotion, etc., etc. Or you can go to the bottom right-hand side and you can set up an account without Google's help. Now, in all the videos that you'll watch online, they use the bottom right-hand side. They set up the account without Google's help. I would urge you not to do that. They do that because it makes for better training videos and it makes for a more interesting way to do things. But actually, if you've got no expertise, it's much, much harder. I would urge you just to choose the sales option and follow the bouncing ball, because that will get you through to the end. They're a very clever company. They've done lots of great websites over the years, and actually following their instructions works. So if you feel confident, go to the bottom right-hand side, follow a training video and set up an account without Google's help, or just follow the bouncing ball. So the first thing they're going to ask you out of a whole stack of questions is the name of the business. Okay? So they're going to do a who are you, what are you, where are you, what's your website address, things like that. And really, it's just persistence. And I'm telling you in advance, pace yourself because there's a lot of questions. Okay. What they want to know is they want to know what your website is. And what they'll do is they'll go over in the background and scan your website, and that will help them fill out some of the questions for you. Okay. If it doesn't work and they say they can't access your website, what that means is that your setup has blocked Google from scanning your website. So you'll need to get some help to do that. The next question it's going to ask you is, what are your advertising goals? Do you want to make more website sales? Do you want to get more telephone calls? Do you want to advertise a physical location? In the case of the market, generally we're going to go for sales. Okay, so you write in sales. And then we go into a familiar screen. And this is the Google Ads screen. It'll say it's a new campaign, and it's going to tell us where we've got to get to. We've got to select a campaign and set it up. We've got to add some ads, ad groups. We've got to start some ads, and we've got to do a review. Okay, that's really where we're going to go. And there's a standard menu at the top here, which is settings and tools, research, and report, and a search function. So it's the spanner that is where all the details live. So if you've got stuck and you need to look for a link, the link is always usually under the spanner. Okay. So in this particular case, we're going to call our campaign sales, and it's going to ask us, do we want to do the search network and the display network? I would urge you just to do the search network. Okay. The search network is just where people are typing things in. The display network is third parties like the Sydney Morning Herald and other advertising sites and things like that. When you're starting out, go for the search network and go local. Otherwise, you can just spend all your money advertising in lots of places where you don't necessarily want to be. So name your campaign and choose the search network and turn the display network off. Okay. So the next thing it's going to ask you after a whole series of questions is whether you want to do conversion tracking, right? Now, conversion tracking is where you use Google Analytics to find out where all your customers came from and what they bought and when they bought it. When you first start off, it's almost impossible to do the conversion tracking. And the reason is they'll ask you lots of questions, and then you'll get to a screen like this and you'll need the help of a tag manager. You'll need the help of a developer or someone to install the actual tags itself. So in this particular case, I would say follow the bouncing balls and then skip out on the conversion tracking. We can come back to that when you're a more sophisticated user. So what does it want to know about a campaign? It wants to know when to start it and when to end it. Okay. And if you're starting out with a budget, those are really, really important dates, because if you're going to put in $20, $30, $40, $50, you want it to end. Okay, in case you lose control of it, in case it's not working, in case it starts to spend a lot of money. So start with a small set of dates. Okay, don't worry about the other options. Okay, they're for more sophisticated users. The next thing that we've really got to look at when we've got a set of dates in there is where. Okay, we don't want to go all countries and all territories, because that's the whole world, and our $50 budget or $20 budget won't go very far if we're advertising in Chile and Nigeria. So what we've got to do is choose a location. The other thing we can also do to save money while I'm here is we can change the schedule, which means that we only advertise between, say, 7 a.m. in the morning and 11 p.m. at night. So we don't necessarily waste clicks on people who are surfing the web at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're just little ways when you set up to help you manage your budget. So we're going to look at location first. Google can get you incredible details. When you look at locations, we're going to choose Australia, and then we can take it right down to a city. And as you can see, it tells you how many people you can target by choosing their options. So I can choose Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and that's 5.7 million people. Okay. I can choose a single suburb in Victoria, such as 3045, and that's 151,000. Or I can choose the northern suburbs for 1.7 million people, or I can choose Victoria for 5.9 million people. So you've got a real choice as to who you want to. Obviously, if you're doing takeaway food, you don't want to do the whole of the state of Victoria. You don't even probably want to do, all of Melbourne. So you can maximize your budget and make sure your dollars go further by choosing a really, really good zone. Now, the next question which people often get confused about is down here. It's called target. So you can choose people who are in Melbourne already, or you can choose people who are coming to Melbourne already, or you can choose both. Okay, I would tell you just when you start out to go to the top one. So for example, hotels will choose people who expect an interest in Melbourne but aren't here yet. So, that's how they make their ad budget go further. Okay. So, and you can choose the other one is people searching for your targeted location, but our target location is QVM. It's a bit harder to ratchet it down. Whoops. Sorry, just got to go back one. The next option that they offer you is you can do it by radius. So you can say, I want to put in a place name and I want to go 20 kilometers around there, or I want to go 10 kilometers, or I want to go 5 kilometers around there. This is a really, really useful option in flat cities like Melbourne. Okay, it's really useful in places like Geelong. It's really useful in Ocean Grove and things like that, because you can choose, for local business, you can choose a circle, a bit of an area. Obviously with Melbourne, a huge chunk of it disappears into the bay, but that doesn't really matter. So that is your other kind of option. The other thing is micro-targeting. You can get right down to North Melbourne. So I looked at 3051 and it says that's such a tiny amount of data that we can't tell you how many customers you can get. When you choose your location, Google shows you it on a map so you can double check. Okay? So in this particular case, we've chosen the whole of Victoria, and they'll try and keep us in Victoria. Okay. We can change the language if we want to change the language down the bottom there. And we can exclude people if we want to exclude people, but we're not going to go into that now. So the next most important thing is how much are we going to spend? Okay, so we're going to spend $20 a day on this campaign. And don't be shy about putting in 10 bucks. 10 bucks is $70 a week, right? So when you times that by 52, it's quite a commitment. So put in a small amount of money when you start, just to find your feet. The next thing is when you look at your report, if you put in, say, for example, $10 a day, Google might spend $30 on one day, but over 28 days, it will average it out. So it's only $280. So don't panic in the first few days if the money goes up and down, because Google guarantees to bring you in within a few percentage of budget over 28 days. So it tends to fluctuate. So most clients start out in a small business with $20 or $30 a day, just so that they haven't spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars in the first week. So set it up what you want. When you get a bit more sophisticated, you can bid on different things. You can bid on clicks, you can bid on conversions, you can bid on all sorts of things, right? I'd urge you to start out on clicks. And you can also put in a maximum budget. So I'm saying I'm not willing to spend more than $3 for a single click. Obviously, if you've got a product that's low cost, you don't want to be spending a fortune getting each client. If you've got a $15 client and it costs you $50 to get them, unless they've got a lifetime value of greater than $50, you're losing money. So some clicks are really expensive, and those clicks are usually to do with law. And so lung disease, asbestosis, is the most expensive click in Australia, and that comes in, lawyers are willing to pay about $200 a click for that particular word, those particular group of words, and so, but most people are fishing around the bottom end of the market. Okay, so we've set up our budget. And like I said, I just wanted to show you other types of biddings. You can bid on conversions, and you can say, if a client converts to my site, I'm willing to pay up to $50. But that assumes, like I said, that the value of the client after your costs is greater than $50. So as you get better at it and you work with someone, you can choose different kinds of bidding strategies. In the beginning, just go with clicks. So the next thing that it asks you is about ad rotation. Again, the thing to do here is just to choose option number one, optimize. And what Google does, if you write 3 or 4 ads, it shows the one that performs the best the most often. So you might write 4 ads because you're experimenting, and one of them might be much more successful at getting clicks than the others. And Google will optimize it so it shows that ad more consistently. And if you do 4 ads, it'll basically choose the best 1 or 2 to keep showing your clients. Other people don't want to do that, and it gives them the option to have other choices and test other texts and words. Okay? So what we've done so far with Google is we've said who we are, what the name of the business is, that we want sales, that we want to pay per click, that we want to spend $20 a day, that we don't want to spend more than $3 a time, and that we'll set up conversions later, and that we'll let them optimize our ads. Now, there are lots of other sophisticated things you can do, and one of the things is add site links. Okay, site links are when you look at a Google ad and it's got 4 or 5 blue words underneath it, and you can click on those blue words and it takes you straight to a category. So if you took someone like Chris from Aussie Fleece, Chris might have Aussie Fleece as his main ads, and then he might have a site link for Ugg boots and a site link for skins and a site link for giftware. Okay, so clients who are looking for his kind of stuff can go through, and instead of going to the front of his page, they can click straight on the giftware or straight on the Ugg boots. Okay, and these are just site links, and Google asks you if you want to put any site links in. Okay, so in the case of this cruise company, we had retail travel agents and travel groups, because those were our two big categories within our product. The next thing you can do is you can do a price-based ad. Again, it's for a bit more of a sophisticated user, but I'm just going through it so that you know that it's there. So your ad can feature a couple of products. So you could say, if you were selling electronics, you could put in an ad for irons. You could put in an ad for kettles, and you could put in an ad for something else that you had, like skillets. And so you could say homewares, market homewares, and put in 2 or 3 products with a price against them that you want to do, that you want to use. Again, when you're starting out, you'd just be better off to go to market electronics. This is just an example where you can see site links. So we know it's a Google ad, right? Because it says ad up the top. In this particular case, they've written this ad, right? And then they've got some quick links down the bottom here: DIY gifts for kids, self-care kits, Father's Day, beer and barbecue. Yep. So those are just examples of site links that you can see in an ad, just so you can understand what I'm talking about. So once you've chosen all of that, Google is going to ask you to start writing your ad, and they'll give you a couple of different screens. And this is basically the screen writing, the screen that you will see. And as you write, it will update your ad and show you what it looks like on a mobile. So you can get a bit of a feel for whether when you start writing an ad, Google gives you a dashboard, and it updates the ad so you can see how what you're writing comes across to the client. And we've got to keep it simple. When we speak to a client via mobile or via an ad, we've got to really be clear, and we don't have much space, and we don't have much attention span. So we've got to create something really short, sharp, and succinct. So there are lots and lots of different things on this page, but there are very few things you need to actually pay attention to. And what you need to pay attention to is writing a headline and writing 2 bylines, and they're both in here. And they have word limits and character limits. So each line at the top here is only allowed 30 characters, and that includes any space or grammar. As you type, Google will tell you how many words you've used up. So I've written my headlines, different headlines, cruise solutions and cruise buying groups. And then I've written some text down here that goes with it. When you write the text, that's the black bit down here, you get up to 90 characters. So it tells you basically that you've got a couple of headlines at 30 characters, and you've got to write an ad within 90 characters. Okay, so we'll talk about what to write a little bit later on, but this is just the dashboard that you get to. When you get to the dashboard, ignore everything and put in a URL, and then start to fill out your headlines and your text, and keep it clear and simple. All right. So it's who, what, when, where, and how is what you're really doing, which is, who am I? What am I advertising? Where is it? When is it? And how do I want you to transact with this? This is another Google ad screen. And when you sign up to Google Ads and you start writing ads, you can get one of 2 screens at the moment. And I don't know why you get one screen and not the other screen. Okay. One is more sophisticated than the other. And this is the simple screen, the one that I prefer, because, I'm a simple person. So it's exactly the same thing, but easier to understand. So I start writing my ad. It says, what's your business? It's the Kitchen Club. What's my headline? Italian kitchenware sale. What's my second headline? Imported Italian cookware. Okay. Do I need a third backup headline? Cooking and kitchenware sale. You can see them come out on here. Okay. The next thing it's going to say is, do you have a little byline to put on the end of your URL? And I'm going to say 21-day sale, right? And then I've got to have some calls to action in my ad, some text. So I've written 2 different ads here. 21 days only, fully imported, Italian kitchenware and cooking sale starts 1st of August. My second version is time to update your kitchenware, 21-day Italian designer kitchenware sale, don't miss out. Okay. Now there's a logic to what I've written there. So my URL is Kitchen Club, and I've written 21-day sale because I want to create a sense of urgency, and I've done that by saying it's got a limited temporal duration. It's a 21-day sale. Okay. If they've come to it late, I've told them it's already started on 1st of August. Okay. I've implied that there's a limited amount of content by saying don't miss out. Yep. And I've also talked about the product. What is it? It's kitchen. So just in terms of my content and my logic for thinking, I've said that it's Italian, and I've said that it's kitchenware, and I've said that it's fully imported. And I've said that because Australians like Italian cooking and cuisine, and we know lots of Italian chefs. We know they make great design, and as a culture, we value a lot of things that are imported. We give them higher status. So I've chosen my ad quite carefully. And if you pick it apart, of course, it couldn't be Italian if it wasn't imported. But I'm trying to get a message across to the consumer. So what I'm implying is there's a short period, there's an urgency to act, and you shouldn't miss out. So what I want my clients to do is click through and have a look and maybe buy. So my ad is a short-term ad. And that's the kind of thing you've got to think about when you write an ad. Right? So at the moment, I've been chatting to Drita about souvenirs, and we're going to have a conversation about what we want the clients to actually do when they come to the site. We could write Australian souvenirs, so what, right? But actually, we want them to do something. So we're going to write some ads which are about action, and I'm going to sit down with her and say, okay, let's talk about getting the clients to do something. What do you want the client to do? And she's going to tell me, I want the client to do X, Y, and Z, or we want to ship this amount of content. And we're going to assemble an ad like I've done here. Tell me about your product. Well, it's Italian. It's imported. I've got lots of it. I need to get rid of it because no one's coming to the market. So I want to do it online. Fine. When do you want to do it by? I want to get rid of all my winter stock. I want to be clear by. Okay? So that's the kind of logic that you've got to be thinking about. So when you think about your advertising, you've got to break it down. And the more time you spend planning and thinking, the better off you're going to be. Are you advertising a product or a service? And what action do you want the person to take? You're advertising, so what kind of promotion is it? We're not, in the case of most market traders, in a position to be able to do brand advertising, right? Leave that to Nike, leave it to Maya, right? Just stick on action. What do you want people to do? It's a sale, it's a discount offer, it's a 2-for-1, it's a try for buy. It's, think about what kind of promotion that you're offering. Yep. And what's the driver to action? Is it price, scarcity, limited inventory, fear of missing out? Is it treat yourself? You've got to have a logic, a driver for action. Otherwise, your ad's not really going to work. Okay, so most of you got some great products, and you've got some great things that businesses and services you've offered it. So it's a matter of assembling that matrix and saying, okay, I'm offering a product. Okay, great. I'm offering a product. What do I want them to do? I want them to click through the website and buy it, or I want them to phone me, or I want them to come through social media, or I want them to download a code, etc. And then what kind of promotion is it? So these are the kind of things you have to think about so you know what kind of ad to write. Okay, so we've just put together a little ad, and I did when I was doing the sort of testing. And as you can see from here, Google isn't foolproof. I got all the way through the end and it asked me to reload the page because my internet connection wasn't very good. So when you've thought about your ad and you've developed an ad, you'll get to this particular point where Google shows you the ad, okay, and it says save and continue. So in this particular case, we're going to save and continue. It'll then give you a really little summary, okay? When's it going to start? When's it going to finish? What's the budget? What's the bid strategy? And where am I advertising? Mine says Afghanistan and Australia. I put that in deliberately because Australia is where I'm advertising, and then I've excluded lots of places where I know that we get junk traffic from in Australia. So on certain products in Australia, we get, in businesses, and you get to know this after a time, you have to block out lots of countries so they don't just click through all your ads. And so I just put Afghanistan on there because it started with A. So if we're advertising a product and we want to block a country out, we can do that. I've got all languages. Most people would go English. And what's the campaign objective? So in this particular case, it's website traffic, but what we talked about before was sales. When you're happy with the summary, we can publish. Okay? When you get here, Google will ask you what keywords you're going to put around ads. And one of the reasons that people stop advertising or don't get started on advertising on Google is that they get very frightened about the keywords experience. There's a million videos, blogs, Twitters, and all sorts of things about keywords, and people can really overcomplicate it.
It does get overcomplicated. It really can be quite an easy task. It's just that there is just so much information out there that you tend to get bogged down in it and don't get started.
Yeah, and they're going to, and a lot of those videos are frightening, you know, telling, oh, if you get it wrong, it's a disaster. It isn't. So what happens is Google will ask you if you want, if they want you to look for some keywords on your behalf, right? The answer is yes, I do. Okay. So what it'll do is it'll go away and scan the URL that you put in of your website, and it will look at all the details that you've put into the system so far, and it will suggest what it thinks are keywords for you to bid on. Okay. So in the background, I was doing something on a cruise site, and it's come up with a suggestion that you can see in the background: cruise sites, travel and cruises, cruise agents Australia, cruise line travel agents, cruise wholesalers, cruise travel Australia, etc., etc. All quite good keywords. And I've done nothing except look at it. If I don't like what they've got, I can just delete them out later on. Okay? So what happens is that if you say yes, they'll go away and find a load of keywords for you and attach them to your particular ad. In the first instance, let them do that, okay? Because that will help you get started. So if you want to write a second ad, now's your chance to do it, okay? So if we're going to write 3 or 4, continue. Before I save and continue, I just want to talk about negative keywords, okay? You can block out keywords. So when I did this for cruises, I sat down with the client, and the client said, okay, we've got to block out Tom Cruise, Connor Cruise O'Brien, cruise control, and all these things that have to do with the word cruise that eats up their traffic. So they know from previous experience that they have to block out the names of these celebrities. Otherwise, people type in Tom Cruise, new baby or whatever, and your ads appear and people end up clicking on them and they've got no interest whatsoever. So you can put in keywords to block things out if you want to. But again, it's a bit more of a sophisticated system. I would just concentrate on getting started. Okay. When you get in there, this is what happens. You'll get a screen like this, and it'll show you that your campaign is basically up and running. And these screens are incredibly complicated when you first start out, but there's really a couple of simple bits of information on this screen. And I'll show you a live one in a minute. This one will tell you who's clicked, how many impressions you got. That means how many times your ad appeared and how many times people clicked on it. How much you
Peter,
spent,
can you just
and how much you paid.
can you just go back to the clicks?
Yep. Okay. So when you look at this over a week's period or 2 weeks or a month, it'll show you how many times people clicked on your ads, how many times your ads actually showed up, what you paid for each click, and how much you spent in that period that you're looking for. Okay. It'll also show you all the ads that you've got live and what the text is. And it will also show you all your keywords and which ones were good, which ones you spent money on, sorry, which ones you clicked through, and what the CTR is. And the CTR means the click-through ratio. And what that means is the higher the click-through ratio, the better and more successful the word is. So if I spend $20 on a word, but on the other hand, every time my ad appears, it gets clicked on 100% of the time, then the ratio is going to be really good, right? So it means that word's very successful for me. So this is your basic management tool. And what you're really looking at is how much money did I spend? How many times did my ads show up? And how many clicks have I got? In the first instance, you'll be able to see from your sales whether you've got any success, okay? But once you get more sophisticated, you can tag up Google AdWords with your actual website account, and you can be much more specific and accurate about that. But in the beginning, it's really what we're doing is looking at just getting live. And to get live, you have to have an account, a campaign, an ad, and some keywords in the ad, and you've got to have a budget and a credit card in there. Okay, that's it. Yeah. So it's a reasonably kind of simple process, to get through. Start on this page here, and it can be incredibly difficult to understand. So what I've done is I've followed Google's bouncing ball to get here, unlike most of the tutorial videos online. Okay, so when we're in here, the place where you'll find the most help is under this little tools menu here. When you look at this little tools menu here, it will tell you basically every link that you need to get help to manage your account that's here. So you load your credit card in under billing. If you need any setup help, it's here. If you're looking at conversion and Google Analytics and linking up your accounts, you do that here. Bulk actions are really for agencies, don't really worry about that. Shared library, that is also a much more sophisticated option, but really under planning is where you can spend some time. So you can do your research, you can look for keywords, you can look and see how your ads have gone, and you can look at trying planning some performance. So the ones really that you're really concerned with looking at on a day-to-day basis is planning and measurement. When you start out, you're looking at setup and billing. So again, I'd say just skip these out for now until you get good at it. Just start with setting it up, getting your billing right, doing my planning, and then having a look at how you're going. Okay? So what you can use Google for is for finding new keywords. And they offer two different options. Discover new keywords and look at volume and forecasts. And that's some of the things that you need to get good at. Okay? Oops. All right. So I might just take a pause for a second and go to another screen and show you what the insides of some people's accounts look like, and also talk a little bit more about keyword planning. So I'm just going to escape out of this screen, and so I'll just give you a second for this to show up. So this is one of the customers that I'm working with at the moment, and you can see that they're quite a big user of ads, and they've been doing it for quite a long time. So at the moment, we can see they've had 643,000 clicks and 144 conversions. 6,433 clicks, 144 conversions. The cost for conversion is about $28, and they've spent $4,000 in the time that I'm looking at their account. And they can see over time how they've done, right? You can see at the beginning they've got plenty of clicks but no conversions. That's a bit of a myth because they didn't have conversions tagged up. And as things have got better and better, they've become more and more successful. And at the moment in June, that was one of their best days ever. They got 19 conversions. So what that means for them is that 19 people saw their ad, clicked through their ad, came to their site and purchased something. And after they'd finished their cart, Google sent a message back to itself saying this client has converted. So they paid $19 each for those conversions, but their average sale value is much, much, much higher than that. And obviously if they get repeat comes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Okay. So they're running a number of campaigns at the moment, and you can see how much they've spent on each campaign, what their conversions are, and how much each different conversion cost. Okay. We can then look at, we'll disappear behind here, what each of their words cost them and what their most successful words were. Now I just have to move around within the screen here a second. Okay, so here's the clicks, 246 clicks. And what happened is that 5.91% of the time that their word showed up in one of their ads, they got a click. That's very, very successful. So it gives, they know that this is one of their best words, and it's being very successful for them. Okay, so down the bottom, Google gives them more information. I just have to move myself around again. And it tells them what searches that customers were using and what words they were using. Where this is really useful for them is that they can then put those words back into their website because they know that those words are successful for their website. So they can then use those as content on their website because they know that customers converted in paid search, so therefore they should use that in unpaid search. So it does have lots and lots of different information that you've got in that in this screen. So I'll just hit escape again, and I want to come out. And I wanted to show you something that might be familiar to one of the clients here today. So I was recently having a chat with someone about souvenirs, and I was thinking about their ad campaign. I was doing a bit of research before we had a chat again to follow up. And when you're coming to planning keywords, one of the best things that you can use is a thing called Trends. Okay, it's a free service from Google. And what it allows you to do is put words into this system, choose a time period, and it will tell you how popular those words are. So I'm just going to spend 10 seconds talking about that. Madeline, can everyone see the screen okay?
Yes, the screen is fine.
Okay, I'm just got to try and shrink myself down. So what happens is you come to Google Trends and we want to compare different kinds of words. We want to compare the search term souvenir with the search term Australian gift, with the search term Melbourne gift, and the search term Melbourne gift ideas. Okay, we only want to look at Australia. I'm looking at 5 years worth of data because guess what? We haven't sold a lot of gifts in the last year. It's been a pretty quiet time. We want to look at all categories and we're looking at web searches. And what it does is it maps all the words with different colors. And you can see that Melbourne gifts was incredibly popular in 2018. Yep. You can also see, for example, that the words souvenir was way more popular than Australian gifts in Melbourne. Okay. So we can also see that in April and May 2021, that the most successful search words out of this group were souvenir, followed by Australian gifts, followed by Melbourne gifts. So if we're thinking about keywords, it'll tell us actually whether anyone's looking. Right? It's a completely free service. It's absolutely brilliant. So you can put your ideas in here and see how they perform over time. And you can compare one term with another. The next thing it will do is it will tell you how popular those terms are by state. If we're looking at sub-region, if we're looking at Australia, we can break it down into city. So it tells us that the word souvenir is most popular on the Gold Coast, followed by Canberra. Okay. When we look at Melbourne, okay, we've got a different thing. Melbourne gifts, obviously, because the others don't have Melbourne in them. So you can see that the profile here is slightly different because we've put in a search term which is slightly different from the other ideas. But it does tell us what we might need to look at for Melbourne. And it breaks down each of the words that we put in there. So we can see souvenir has different kind of queries associated with it. Souvenir shops near me, souvenir Sovereign Hill, Australian souvenir shop. This Google Trend helps them work out. They give you what's rising, so what's currently in fashion, and also then what is the top. So over the last 5 years, the term baby gifts or online gifts Melbourne and things like that were the top searches by volume. But if you want to know what the most trendy term is right now, it's basically plant gifts for Melbourne. That's pretty good for the shop on Victoria Street. Gifts delivered Melbourne, Mother's Day gifts, flower delivery Melbourne, experience gifts Melbourne. And so that tells us what the current trend is. Okay, so it's an incredibly useful tool, and this is where I go to get my keywords. I've only got a small number of clients that I'm working with at the moment independently, so I don't want to sign up to any of the paid products that are out there to help me with keyword search. I either use Google, but my preference is to use Google Trends because it's in color, it's on a graph, and it's really easy to see. And the system is incredibly easy to use. So I'll show you one. I'll just remove all of these. It's just not letting me activate the page. So what I was just going to do is I'm just going to put in a search so you can actually see it working in in real time. So I'm going to add a search term, and I'm going to talk about the hat project directly across the road from the office. So I can look in hats online as a search term, and I can look at summer hats, and I can also look at spring carnival hats. And lastly, I'll just get rid of this one. So all I've done is put a load of search terms in. I'm looking only in Australia, and I'm just going to look at the last 12 months. Okay, I'm looking at web searches, and what you can see is that it tells me what all of the search terms have been doing in terms of volume. And the problem we've got is Spring Carnival. It's just dwarfed all the others, so it's not really giving us a really good data. If you get a problem like this, just we can just go and delete out the term that's too big, and it will tell us what else is going on. Okay, so it tells us what the interest is in each particular search term. We'll just make it in city because I'm only interested in Melbourne. Oh, it says there's not enough data just to do this for Melbourne, so I can't do that. So it tells us what's fashionable in each state. So in Victoria, hat ideas is probably the most fashionable thing that we're going to look at, that's been looked at the last year. Okay, no spring carnival hats this year, no summer hats, and hats online. So we know that if we're writing a search campaign, those are the words we want to feature on. Okay, hats online, most popular in Queensland. Okay, then we've got summer hats, and it just gives you little bits of data to ideas. Easter hat ideas, crazy hat, Easter parade hat ideas. We can look at the top search terms. So it's a really easy to use tool, right? So if the hat project came to me and said, I want to do some ads online, this is where I'd start. And I'd keep looking until I could find some words that I thought I could hang around a campaign around. And you can ask me some questions about this when we come back to the Q&A session at the end. So, okay, so I was just going to sort of summarize again when we get to this particular point. When you're looking inside an account, you've write a campaign and attach some keywords to it and put a budget on it, say where you want to advertise, and you're off and running. And then Google will keep reporting back to you. And so again, it'll give you a cluster of ideas. They're really useful. It's just a matter of not being overwhelmed by the amount of content that's actually there. So just coming back to the presentation, what I'm going to try and do now is actually try and do a real, set up a real account. And I've got a customer who's written a book, and she's going to let me use her details to do a campaign setup for you. She's not actually going to advertise on Google because her pay-per-click advertising is best done on LinkedIn. Okay, because she's written a small book, and the book is targeted at academics only. And in LinkedIn, we can filter by profession. So we can say, I only want female LinkedIn users because it's about sexism in higher education. I only want people who are employed at a university or in a TAFE. I want them to be professional staff or academic staff, and they must live in Australia. So she doesn't waste the money. So in this particular case, I'll set it up for Google, but actually in reality, I'll do it in LinkedIn. Okay. So before we get to the summary, I'm just going to go off, open a new set of tabs, and we're going to try and go through and set up the account live. So I might be about to make a fool of myself, or I might be about to be very successful. So this is the book. Okay. I mean, this is the website that she's got, and it's really just a blog site, and the blog site supports her, all of the content around the book. I just type in Google AdWords login page. Okay. And I just follow the bouncing ball. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to sign into Google Ads. Oops, I've clicked on the help center. That's not a good start. I've got her password. I won't show it to you. Okay, so I've just signed into Google, right? And of course, this time it's decided not to send me to the ads. Hello, Madeline.
Peter, you're still there.
Am I?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, because I appear to have dropped out because I lost all sound.
I can still hear you too.
Okay, all right. I'll just get to the login page then. I just, all the crackling and everything had disappeared. Okay, so for some reason it won't take me to AdWords. I don't know why, but I'll just get there. Wait 1 second. Okay, so we appear to be back on track. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm assuming that everyone can still hear me. What it's asking me for is I've signed into Google. It's asking me for the name of the website. So I just come here and I copy the name of the website. It'll scan my website for me.
Sorry, Peter. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. We're not. I don't think we're getting the same screen as you, because we're getting. It's like we've got a summary page.
Oh, really? Okay, just 1 second then. Okay, can you see
we've got
that?
a mobile phone.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So what I'll need to do then, thank you very much, Lee. I really appreciate that. Like I said, we lost all sort of
Thank
sound
you.
and contact, and I wasn't sure what had happened.
Yeah.
So if you can now see a screen that's got a mobile phone on it,
Yep.
that means we've missed a couple of steps, right? I'm going to try and go back if that's all right.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I've gone to Google AdWords login page, and all I'd done was log into the page with my Gmail account. It gives me a little screen like this, and it asks me what I want to do. It said, do you want to start a new campaign? And I've said yes. Okay, so it won't give me the original page, which it asks me, do I want to start a new campaign? Okay, so we'll just have to skip that one out for now, but we saw the screen, and I'll show you what that screen looks like. The first question it asks me is the name of my account and my website. So I've put the client's website and look for some ideas. So it'll look through the meta tags on the website. It will look through the title of the website. It'll look at any traffic links to the website, and it will try and give an intelligent answer. Okay? So it'll just make sure you've got the right website by showing you a picture of it on mobile and desktop, so you can make sure it's picked up the right site. You just hit next. Analytics on this site, that's okay. I'm going to skip it out. I know we've got nothing. Okay, so it's going to ask me now about writing my ad. Okay, so I'm just going to write headline 1 and headline 2, and it will automatically populate the ad that's here, right? So I'm going to write. Okay, so what's happened is it tells me that I've got too many letters. Can you see that? It's gone to 37. So I can't write what I wanted to write originally. So I'll just take that text and I'll put that into a description of our line. There, and I'll save that idea. Okay, so I'm going to write it does help me with spell checks, which is good. Okay. Right, so I've written a selection of headlines, right? And as I write the headlines, you can see that it starts to populate the ads over here. Okay. Now I've got to write a description that goes with this. So I've got up to 90 words there, right? But I'm just going to put some in here. Okay, so what we can see is that I just wanted to show you what the examples are like, right? So it's told me that I can't publish these headlines, so I've got too many letters, and these ones I've got more and more words that I can use, right? So it gives you a good guide to what your ad is actually going to look like. So I'll just turn this to universities. Come on. Still gives me too many letters. Okay. Doesn't want me to correct spelling of navigate, but I'll come back to that. I'm working on a tiny screen with a broken arm. Sorry about this. Okay, so, right. Okay, so I've done a mobile ad, right? Because I've chosen to do a mobile ad as we were trying to get the system working, it's asked me if I want to have a call to action. So if I was doing a mobile ad, I'll put my phone number in there. That means that people can call me directly from this business. So if you've got a service or a search, you can write an ad that will allow you, the customer, just to click on the ad and call you directly from that. In the same way that your Google My Business works. If we're choosing a sales ad, then we could have got, we could have done an ad for a sale. So I'll just go through and go next. Okay. So it's asking me about keyword searches, and it doesn't have a lot to say. So I'm going to add Australian universities, okay, and then it's going to tell me, suggest all these keywords to me, okay. So I could choose to put in whatever ones of these, whatever one of these keywords that I like to put in. So I'm just going to click a random selection, I'm going to make sure that I'm advertising in English. Okay, so it's going to ask me where do I want to advertise. Okay, I'm going to advertise in Australia, but I could make that just in Victoria if I wanted to. So what I could do is I could type in Victoria, Australia, and take out that. I could type in Melbourne, okay, and I could take out that. So this is where I choose what sort of area that I want to advertise in. Okay, the next thing it's asking me is what's my budget, okay? So it's going to tell me if I spend $13.10, that my budget's going to be $400 a month, okay? They're saying I should spend $30 a day, which I'm not going to do because that's going to be $1,000 a month. You've got to spell a lot of books. If you're thinking about a book sale, if it's $20 and you're getting $10 to $20 a book, you can't really afford to spend a huge amount of money, okay? What I could do is enter my own budget, okay? And I might make my own budget $10 a day. Okay. Right, now it asks me to review my campaign. And so it just says, right, that's your career guide for academics. What I want is a website action. What's my landing page? What's the business name? What's my ad text? What's my phone number? Where am I advertising? What are my keywords? What are my budget? Okay, if I'm reasonably happy with that, I click on next. Okay, then it's going to ask me to put payments in. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about was this promotional code. If you want to get a free voucher for Google Ads, right, what I suggest you do over the next few weeks is visit the Google AdWords login page lots of times, and in the end, Google will send you or find you a free voucher. Okay, so lots of clients out there get $75 and $95 vouchers from Google, and they do that by clicking on Google Ads and reading lots of things on Google about Google, and then as they're surfing the net, Google will present them with an ad saying, "How about do you want a free trial?" Okay, so I'm just going to set the time zone in Melbourne, or in this particular case, it's Sydney. Okay, I don't have a voucher to put in here. I'm an individual, not an organization, and then it's going to ask me to put the billing address in. When I work with my clients, I use their credit card, not my credit card, because they own the account. So in this particular case, it's just your own credit card. So and then you need to hit submit. Okay, so I'll just see if I can hit submit from here and see what happens. Okay, it's not going to let me go forward without completing with a credit card in this particular case. Accept and continue. Maybe it will do. Okay, no, it won't. Okay, it won't let me go any further than this in terms of setting up my account with this one. Now, what's happened is the screens have turned out to be slightly different on this experience, and they've probably turned out to be slightly different on this experience because I'm using a tablet, not a big screen presentation. So I've got the mobile version of Google Ads instead of the desktop version of Google Ads. So you can see that it's white and the screens look slightly different. But in essence, what I just wanted to show was it's pretty easy to get from the beginning to the end and to start your campaign. So if I come back slightly, when we've completed our ad, we would land on a page that looked like that, except it would be empty. Okay? And that would be our first campaign. If we liked our campaign and we wanted to add an additional ad group, we would click on the ad groups and we would go to, and we would start to add a new ad to the system. So it's just a simple way of showing you how quickly it is to get organized. What I think we need to do, so they brought up their ad groups. If I want to add a new one, all I need to do is select an ad and add an ad group. And I can start writing a new ad. So I'm just come back to the main slide, the most important things to do is then what you want the customer to take, okay, and what the drivers are for your particular ad, and then really to start setting up an account. Now, I've covered a huge amount of detail in a very, very short period of time. So I might hand back to Madeline so we can do a bit of a Q&A. Is that all right, Madeline?
I can hear you. I think Madeline's gone again.
Really? Okay, right. So there must be lots of other people who can hear me. I'm really happy just to take some questions, right? So I've covered quite a huge amount of detail in a really, really short period of time that we'd normally do face-to-face in the boardroom on a big screen. And I've done it on something a little larger than a phone. So the best thing I think is really to take some questions from out there. So if you're on mute at the moment, and I don't know if Madeline can hear us anymore, then by all means, there's no sound. You've got no sound, Madeline? Right. Okay. So if you've got some questions, I'd really encourage you just to unmute yourself and use the time that we've got now to ask me any questions.
Hi, Peter. Can I ask you? Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah, it's a little funny question. I've got a website, and the name of my website is mypirateshop.com.au.
Yep.
I've been working on Google Ads. I kind of spend money like maybe I've spent like probably $100, but I don't get any. I don't get many clicks or conversions. I mean, what? Can you just help me like why that happens?
Okay. The first question I'll ask you is, do you get many impressions?
I do get impressions, yes.
Okay. And what are the impressions for? What terms?
I don't remember, but yeah, something like okay, for example, like compasses. So I get impressions, but I also check this on my Shopify dashboard. So I'm getting customers, but nobody buys. And I do targeted ads and everything, but just doesn't work. I mean,
and Mandy, it doesn't work for everyone. That's the absolute truth. Is Google Ads only works for certain amounts of people. I mean, there is a myth out there. So what you're saying is that you spend money on Google Ads, and that that people arrive at your website from Google Ads. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
So I can see customers coming to my website, So I mean, it's just that way. And
okay. Do you have conversion tracking on your website?
Sorry, I don't know what that means.
Okay, when you set up your ads, you can use conversion tracking, and that is a little piece of code that you put on your website, and it will tell you, it'll track that person all the way through Google Ads, and then you'll be definitely able to tell whether a purchase is related to your ad spend. And anyone who's come to your site in the last 90 days who's clicked through an ad, it will keep a track of them and tell you that they've converted. So then you'll have some proper data. If they're not converting, the usual reason why people don't convert comes down to the fact that what you write in the ad sets an expectation that's not on the website. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the thing that we've got to check is whether your ad content meets the website experience. Okay, so that's the key thing that you usually start with. You then look at then there's other things that you can do then to audit the process. The first thing is, what do your ads look like? Not what they look like. What's the text and what message are they conveying? Then when they click through the website, does that match the expectation? If that matches the expectation, then we look at the website and say, what's wrong with it? Is it the right product or the wrong product? Is it the right price or the wrong price? There's usually a barrier to participation. Okay? And it's a matter of working out where that barrier is in the system. Okay. So I worked with a customer recently who's got a fantastic product, but the price is quite off-putting at the start. And what we've done there is changed his Shopify, so his heading and subheading on the product explain a little bit more detail about what you're getting for your $98. Okay? Because $98 seems like a big commitment when you go through. But actually, when you see what you get for $98 in more detail, then it stopped people from dropping out. So usually it's a matter of sitting down and looking at what you've written and where they land on the website, then the product and the price and how easy it is to use the website to get what you want. Okay.
So is it like that I should be putting more description on the website, more text on the website? Would that help?
I don't know. It just depends. When you're advertising compasses, are you getting people from the Sandringham Yacht Club who are looking for a compass, or are you getting people who are looking for a compass for a year 6 fancy dress up? Right. We want to know. I need to know more about your product and what kind of compasses you're selling, and who your target market is. Because you could be actually getting bushwalkers and orienteers instead of people in a leisure zone. I don't know. Right. In the same way with that cruise company, they were wasting money because their ads were appearing under Tom Cruise. And it's just eating up their budget. So we'd have to spend time and look at your site to make sure that, that we've got the right kinds of things. Like example I gave with the hats, that we weren't losing all of our money on Spring Carnival hat searches when that's not actually the market that we were in, So It's a matter of understanding a little bit about the business and connecting up all the dots. Correct. So the chances are you've done something correct, but there's a gap. You've got a challenge somewhere. And it's really sitting down, looking at your website, looking at the content, looking at the price, then looking at the promotion you've got in place and who is spending your money, who's clicking on that. Are they the right people? Because on the internet, we can't see them.
Correct.
Yeah. So really it's just come and speak to Madeline, have a session, and we can look at some of your ads and use the service. And we can have a basic overview in a market catch-up. Maybe get some good feedback.
So, but would you say that there is hope, for all small businesses?
Yeah, absolutely.
We just need to do it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, and also it's about finding the right pay-per-click. Is the right pay-per-click Google Ads for you, or is it Facebook? Or is it Instagram? Is it Pinterest? Whatever, Where do you get most bang for your buck? If you want to spend $100 a month, right? Where am I going to get you $100 a month's worth of value? Yeah, maybe it's Google, maybe it's LinkedIn. But this book I just did the experiment with, that paid search needs to go in LinkedIn, because I don't want people who aren't in that zone to look at that book. Why would I waste clicks on people who don't work in that industry? So, it's about, when you do digital marketing, it's about finding where the client is going to get the best value.
And is it also like some customers that they would want to buy a particular item, they're very interested, but they feel apprehensive?
Yeah. So then you have to have the website text to say, give me a call or come and visit me at the market.
Correct.
Yeah. So is there any other questions out there from anyone else, or anything that you want me to cover in number 2 that I didn't cover today? You're all on mute. There's got to be something out there.
Just one question.
Sure.
So when you cover next time, can you go a bit more into how you set up the multiple ads under one umbrella? Like you said, that
absolutely. Yeah.
Because you said absolutely. That they choose an ad. So how can you make them different and connect them all? Because I'm not quite sure how to do that. So whether or not I'm looking at putting in ads for different areas. Like, so I want to put one in for the New South Wales. I want to do one for Queensland and WA. Would I do separate ad groups for each of those places?
No, you do separate campaigns, right?
Yes, that's where I get confused.
Yeah, because you can't, the location is at campaign level.
Right.
So that's a great question, right? So if we're advertising to a tourist who's already in Melbourne, then we need a separate campaign for the tourist who's coming to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Right? So in the separate campaign for the tourist who's coming to Melbourne, we exclude Victoria, or we exclude Melbourne.
Yeah. Okay, so it'd be really good to know how to set those things up, because I think that's something most other traders would be looking at as well.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I'm just, there's so much content in Google that I could spend the whole time talking about something that wasn't relevant. So anything that you want me to cover, just let me know. That's a great example. I'll make sure that's covered.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Leah.
Hello. When we type in a search word, when we're typing up words that they can look for, it doesn't have to be just one word. It can be like, say I sell sterling silver jewellery. So I can put sterling silver jewellery in and that'll be the search word. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yep.
And then what happens, and this is what we'll cover in the next meeting, you can make it either an open term or a closed term. So you can say, I don't want to spend any of my money unless it includes the words sterling plus silver plus jewelry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So like sterling silver jewelry is a good term because people often make quite long searches.
Yeah.
They say sterling silver jewelry, earrings or sterling silver, christening cross and things like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So having that word sterling silver in there as an open term is quite useful. And then you can have closed terms such as christening cross,
necklace,
what are charms, charm bangles, bracelets, etc. And you can then do them as closed terms so that in your keywords you can, get more and more detailed. But it's much better to go for phrases than words.
Okay. All right. That's where I was a bit confused. So you fixed that out. So will you be covering that in the next session?
I can do. I'll just put it down.
Yeah. All right.
Because I may as well do a session on what people actually think is useful than what I think is that they need to know.
Because my understanding was that Google words you could only put in one word, or it had to all be one, like sterling silver jewelry, all in the one, not spaced out.
No. You put it in as a proper phrase.
Yeah. So I learned something now.
And then we make sure that in the phrase, in the title and in the content of that ad, those little titles I put in there for 30 words.
Yeah.
If we can get those in the titles and in the content, then we've got a page that says sterling silver will get a good quality score from Google.
Okay. All right. Cool.
So yeah, that's
Thank you.
the perfect sort of thing that we can cover. So would we like to take any more questions? As I understand, we've got to 2:30. So and Madeline has been cut off from us for some reason. So I was just wondering, is there?
Thank you very much.
I know it was my evil plan to cut Madeline off and take over, but it seems to be working. Are there any other questions that I can help you with?
Hi, Peter.
Okay.
It's Jenny here from the HAT Project, and thanks for the help you gave us through the grants. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Yeah, no, that was great. What I want to ask you about, and Drita and I've spent a little bit of time on this, is labelling your photos for the online site to get the clicks up on those. You still there? No?
Yes, I'm listening.
Oh, that's all right. And it was sort of how you go about naming photos that may help a little bit in what Mandir was talking about before. It's one of those ones that always confuses me at TAD, and I'm happy to have a look at that again.
Yeah, okay. I'll talk about that in the context of Google Shopping.
Yep.
Okay, because Google's got a product called Shopping, and it's good to have your photos properly tagged up when you do Google Shopping. So
Right.
they're not just called hat 1, hat 2, hat 3 and things like that. You actually have named the hat picture the same name as the product.
Yep.
In the alt text and the description.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I'll cover that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now I think I'm getting the wind up from Madeline. In terms of time and SPMS, I just wanted to say thank you very much for the opportunity to present, Madeline, and to obviously to SPMS and to the Vic Market. What I'd also just like to say is thank you very much for attending, and hopefully we can add some value in the next session in terms of details of what to do. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.